Hi there. You're watching Reddit Confessions. Grab your tea. This story's going to sting more than lemon juice in a paper cut. The cake was the first clue. I had baked it the night before. Her favorite: dark chocolate, sea salt, orange zest. 3 layers. I even piped tiny rosettes along the rim, and I hate piping. I wrote "for us" in shaky lettering, hoping it'd soften the tension we'd both been pretending wasn't there for months. She walked into the kitchen that morning, gave it a half glance, and said, "Looks dry." No, thank you. No smile. Just a judgment. I told myself it didn't matter. That today was about celebrating. That tonight's dinner with our friends, the first in over a year, would fix things. Or at least patch over the jagged edges. We set the table together in silence. I lit candles. She scrolled through her phone. Her laughter broke the stillness. A private joke shared with someone on the screen, not with me. By 6 p.m., the guests arrived. Desmond, Eli, Nisha, people I trusted. People who once saw us as that couple. We poured wine. We toasted old stories. And for a while, it felt like things might hold together. Then it started. Subtle at first. She told them I color-code the spice rack like a psycho. They laughed. I smiled, though I felt something sink. Then she said I once cried because the neighbor's dog barked at me. That wasn't true. It was a panic attack. But sure, let's call it tears over barking. Everyone laughed harder this time. I didn't. By the 3rd glass of wine, she was unstoppable. She told them I once made a spreadsheet comparing laundry detergents. Okay, fine, that was true, but it wasn't funny. Not when she delivered it with a dramatic, mocking imitation of my voice. Everyone was in stitches. And I just sat there, red-cheeked and quiet, pretending my hands weren't shaking under the table. No one defended me. Not even Eli, who knows what I went through last winter when I thought I was losing my job. Not even Desmond, who once asked me for relationship advice because he said I understood people. That night, I washed every single dish while she danced barefoot to a Spotify playlist, still tipsy, still smirking. I didn't say a word. Not that night. Not the next. Not even when I heard her whispering on the phone at 2 a.m. to someone named Jay, laughing in a way she hadn't laughed with me in years. I kept quiet. Until today. Because today, I walked into an empty kitchen. Her keys were gone. So was the cake, untouched, dumped in the trash. And then my phone started ringing. And ringing. And ringing. Her name flashing. Again. And again. And again. Voice messages. All of them the same. Her voice cracked, slurred by tears. I messed up. Please, just talk to me. You didn't deserve that. I didn't mean it. But here's the part that matters most. I didn't answer. Because I finally heard the truth inside her silence. And mine. It was never weakness. It was survival. The first voicemail lasted 1 minute and 38 seconds. I let it play through with the phone face down on the kitchen counter, my arms crossed, my eyes fixed on the flickering candle I lit mostly out of habit. Her voice trembled in the beginning, and not in the delicate way people cry in movies. It was broken, hoarse, raw. I know you're listening. Please, Elle. Please. I didn't mean to go that far. But she did. She absolutely did. You don't laugh like that, fully, freely, cruelly, unless somewhere in your bones you believe the joke is true. And the thing is, it wasn't the first time. It was just the first time there was an audience. You see, Marcy wasn't always like this. Or maybe she was, and I was too starved for affection to notice. It's hard to tell the difference when you're the type of person who counts shoulder touches as love and considers silence a form of peace. But after the party, something inside me finally started listening. Not to her, but to myself. I slept on the couch that night, claiming indigestion. Truth was, I didn't want to be near her. Her perfume lingered in the sheets. Her earrings sparkled on the nightstand like little reminders that she still existed in a space I was slowly slipping out of. I lay awake thinking about all the things I could have said at the table, all the ways I could have stood up for myself. But when the moment had come, all I did was smile. It was like watching someone kick your dog, and instead of yelling, you just offered them a glass of water. The next morning, she was hungover and chipper. She asked if I wanted pancakes. Pancakes. Like we hadn't just reenacted the emotional equivalent of a public execution over Pinot Noir and lemon chicken. I said no politely. She looked at me with a quizzical smile and said, "Still sulking?" That was when I realized she hadn't even registered the damage. To her, it was just another night. Another laugh. Another story to retell at work. To me, it was the quiet confirmation that I didn't matter anymore, not the way I should. That afternoon, I started packing a few things in secret. A jacket, my grandfather's pocket knife, an old photo of me with my mom before she passed, the last one where I looked genuinely happy. I didn't know where I was going yet, but I knew I wouldn't stay long enough for round two. Then, late that night, I saw her phone light up again. Jay's speech balloon. When can I see you alone again? Winky face. No shame. No code names. No lock screen. Just bold, unfiltered betrayal. She had turned me into a caricature in public and a ghost in private. I didn't confront her. Not yet. That would have given her control of the ending. Instead, I wrote a letter, just 2 sentences, and left it on her bathroom mirror. I packed what I needed, closed the front door behind me at 4:12 a.m., and drove until the sky started to pink in. I didn't know where I was headed, but that sunrise felt like the first breath I'd taken in years. Now I was sitting in a borrowed room, the carpet scratchy, the walls thin, and my phone blinking with her 5th voicemail. This time her voice was cracked wide open. Elwood, I didn't know you'd leave. I thought you'd. I don't know. I thought you'd always just be there. Please come home. I need you. I'm sorry. I didn't mean those things. I swear, Jay doesn't mean anything. Oh, there it was. Jay had a name now. He existed in the same breath as her apology. I wondered if she noticed the irony. How the first time she said she needed me was only after I finally said nothing at all. I didn't reply. Instead, I looked around the room, smiled to myself, and for the first time in a long, long while, I didn't feel small. I felt still. And this time, it wasn't a weakness. It was freedom. I don't know what I expected when I left. Maybe silence. Maybe relief. Maybe she'd toss a throw pillow at the door and say good riddance to herself before going back to whatever version of life she preferred without me in it. What I didn't expect, and I still can't explain why, was the flood. Not just of voicemails, but of messages, emails, and one ridiculous handwritten letter left in my old mailbox, scrawled on the back of a takeout menu from the Thai place she used to hate. She wasn't just calling. She was unraveling. But I still didn't answer. I kept my phone on silent, only checking it once or twice a day, usually late at night when the traffic outside my motel window died down and I could hear my own thoughts again. One night, though, her voice message was different. She wasn't crying. She wasn't angry. She sounded calculated. Sharp. You think you're punishing me, Elwood? Running away? I dared you for years to show some backbone, and the first time you do it, it's in the most cowardly way possible. Congrats. You finally became interesting by leaving. I remember sitting there, letting those words burn a slow hole in my chest. Interesting. That was what it took. Abandoning everything just to earn that one word? The next morning, I was going through the small plastic bin of clothes I'd taken with me when my phone buzzed with a different kind of notification, a forwarded email. From her. Subject line, mistake. No body text. Just an audio file attachment. It was a voice recording, probably from her phone, maybe meant for someone else. I stared at it for a long time before pressing play. And then there it was. Her voice. Her laugh. And another man's voice. Jay. They weren't whispering. They weren't shy. They were talking like they were in the safety of our home. I heard her say my name, and I stopped breathing. He's not even mad, she said, through laughter. It's like living with a shadow. You can say whatever you want in front of it. It never talks back. You ever tried yelling at a ghost? Nothing happens. Jay laughed. Then he said something that made me clench the bed frame so hard my knuckles went white. You humiliated him, and he still made you dinner? Marcy, I know. He piped frosting like a 5-star chef. While I was texting you under the table. The cake was good, though. I almost felt bad. Jay, almost. Then silence. The kind that doesn't need explanation. The file ended there. No apology. No explanation. Just evidence. Like a dagger that had been sterilized, polished, and gift-wrapped, then delivered straight to the softest part of my chest. I didn't respond. But that night, I did something I hadn't done since I left. I called someone. Craig, the guy from the dinner party, the one who laughed a little too hard when she mocked me. We hadn't talked much since I left. I figured maybe he was more loyal to her than me. But when he picked up, his voice was quiet, hesitant. Elwood. Yeah, I said. I need to ask you something, and I need you to tell me the truth. He didn't wait. He just said, I was going to call you. I've been meaning to for days. That's when he told me what really happened after I left the table that night to go grab a bottle of wine from the basement. Apparently, Marcy kept going. Said things like, I don't even know if he's capable of desire anymore. That I was more like a brother than a husband. That Jay had woken her up. Craig said no one laughed after that. Said Nisha actually got up and went to the bathroom for 15 minutes. Said Eli changed the subject. But no one said anything to her face. No one told me after either. Until now. And here's the worst part. Craig said something else. Something that made my ears ring. Elle, she told us you'd never leave. That you were too soft. Too scared to be alone. I hung up after that. Politely, but quickly. Then I stared at myself in the mirror for a long time. Not out of vanity. Not out of self-pity. But because I was trying to understand how I had become the punchline in my own life. How someone could live with me for over a decade and never once believe I was capable of walking away. Not even when handed proof that she didn't just stop loving me. She stopped respecting me too. And yet, somehow, that was the night I finally slept. Because finally, I was no longer guessing what she thought of me. She had told the world. And I was no longer afraid to show them who I really was. It happened 4 days after I listened to the recording. By that point, I had blocked her on everything except email. Partly because I didn't want to hear her voice again, and partly because some part of me needed to preserve the chain of evidence. I didn't know what she was capable of yet. But that email, that file she accidentally sent, that was a glimpse into a darker version of her. The version that didn't just cheat. She mocked me with it. And worse, she shared it with people who used to know me, used to respect me. I had taken a part-time maintenance job at a rundown RV park 2 hours from town. Quiet place. No questions asked. Cash under the table. The kind of place where no one cared about your past, as long as you showed up sober and didn't steal. I'd taken to reading old paperbacks in the evenings, trying to piece my mind back together like a jigsaw puzzle missing half the edge pieces. Then I got the call from Nisha. I stared at her name lighting up my screen for a full minute before I picked up. Nisha, Marcy's former best friend. The only person at that dinner party who didn't laugh. The one who slipped me a napkin under the table that night and whispered, "You okay?" Elwood, she said, without greeting. You need to see what she posted. My stomach dropped. Posted where? Facebook. Her story. Her public story. Now, I hadn't checked social media since I left. I didn't want to be tempted into that rabbit hole. But the urgency in Nisha's voice made me break that rule. I borrowed a dusty old laptop from the RV park manager, connected to the weakest Wi-Fi imaginable, and typed in her name. And there it was. A 42-second video. At first, the screen was dark. Then it lit up. Candlelight, low jazz music, a table half set with wine glasses. Her voice came through, breathy and sweet, the same voice she used to use when she wanted something from me. She panned the camera to the table, then to her face. I know I made a mistake, she said, dramatically brushing her hair back. But I'm not going to let one little moment define me. People change. People grow. And sometimes the person you thought was your rock turns out to be sand. I wanted to feel alive again. And I did. And now I'm being punished for it. I felt the heat rise behind my eyes. She wasn't just spinning the story, she was rebranding it. Painting herself as the misunderstood phoenix rising from the ashes of her boring, silent marriage. She had even tagged it. #rebirth, #healing, #finding me. And the comments. That's what really hit me. People were supporting her. You're so brave for sharing this. Men never get it. They're so emotionally flat. Live your truth, girl. I scrolled in disbelief, my chest tightening with every heart emoji and empty affirmation. She had cheated, mocked me, lied to everyone. But because she cried on camera and wrapped it in empowerment, they applauded her like she had survived a war instead of detonating a bomb in someone else's life. And then I saw a name in the comments that made my stomach churn. Jay. He had commented a single fire emoji. One. That was it. But it said everything. She still had him. Still leaned on him. And yet she was begging me to come back in voicemails. Telling the world she was a victim. Framing me as a fragile relic from her past. That was the moment something inside me hardened. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was public humiliation all over again. First the dinner table. Now the internet. And this time, I wouldn't just sit there with a clenched jaw and a polite smile. No, I started typing. I didn't say much. Just a short, calm comment under her video. No insults, no accusations. If growth requires lying, cheating, and publicly humiliating the person who loved you in silence for 12 years, I hope you never stop growing. Then I logged out. 20 minutes later, my phone lit up like a Christmas tree. Blocked number. Voicemail. Blocked number again. New email. You had an O right. But I didn't open it. Instead, I packed my bag, left the RV park, and drove back toward the city. Not to see her. Not even close. I was headed to someone who had offered me something I hadn't had in a long time. A voice. Because Nisha? She didn't just call to warn me. She had screenshots. I met Nisha at a quiet cafe just outside the city limits. One of those places with dusty bookshelves no one touches and a chalkboard menu written in barely legible cursive. I got there early, sat by the window, and nursed a bitter black coffee while my nerves twisted tighter than a noose. I didn't know what she had, only that her voice over the phone was serious in a way that left no room for guessing. When she walked in, sunglasses still on despite the cloudy sky, she didn't even bother with pleasantries. She sat down, pulled out her phone, and said, "You sure you're ready for this?" I nodded. Maybe I wasn't, but I was done hiding. Done avoiding the truth just because I wasn't emotionally armored enough to absorb it. I thought I'd already hit the lowest point. I thought there was nothing left for Marcy to destroy. I was wrong. Nisha opened her gallery and tapped through a series of screenshots. "These," she said, "were sent to me by someone in her friend's circle." Apparently, she was bragging about them. And there it was. Text after text after text, all from Marcy, all about me. He thinks I'm at yoga? LOL. I'm literally in Jay's truck right now. I swear he still believes we're going to reconnect during our anniversary trip. Can't wait to cancel last minute again. Sometimes I feel like I'm just babysitting an adult. He looks at me like I'm the son. It's exhausting. Jay says I should just leave him already, but I like the safety net. You know? I felt physically ill. My throat tightened. My hands trembled on the edge of the table, and I had to blink hard to keep the tears at bay. Not because she was cheating, I already knew that, but because of the contempt. The pure, blistering disdain in her words. It wasn't just that she didn't love me anymore. It was that she saw me as less than, as weak, as pathetic, as a tool. And I had been feeding her, supporting her, fixing her car, doing her laundry while she called me a burden behind my back. Nisha placed a hand gently on mine. "There's more," she said hesitantly. "She's not just telling these things to friends. She's planning to go on a podcast." I blinked. "Eh, what?" "Some local women's empowerment channel," she explained. She pitched them a segment about escaping a sexless, emotionally stunted marriage. She's rebranding herself as this brave survivor. She's turning you into a plot device. I sat there in stunned silence. This wasn't a breakup. This wasn't even betrayal anymore. It was character assassination. She was erasing everything we ever shared. The road trips, the birthdays, the private jokes, the way she once held my face when I cried over my father's death. All rewritten into a story where she was the brave heroine, and I was the gray little man who clipped her wings. I asked Nisha why she was telling me this. She looked away for a second, then back at me. Because I believed her for a while. I really did. "She made you sound like some cardboard cutout." And I laughed. I went along with it. But after the dinner party, I saw your face. That wasn't a man who didn't care. That was a man getting crushed in real time. I felt tears well up again, but this time they didn't spill. I just nodded. Then she said something that surprised me. "You know, she always said you wouldn't survive without her. That you'd crawl back. That she could do whatever she wanted, and you'd still ask if she wanted tea in the morning." I almost laughed. Bitter, shallow. "Yeah? Well, I haven't had tea in weeks. And I don't miss it." That made her smile a little. Then she slid an envelope across the table. "This is from the woman who sent me those screenshots. Her name's Talia. She used to be one of Marcy's drinking buddies. She printed out everything, just in case you ever needed it legally." Inside were dozens of pages. Annotated. Time-stamped. It wasn't just gossip anymore. It was a timeline. Receipts. Conversations. Patterns of manipulation. Lies that could be verified. I sat there for a while after Nisha left, just staring out the cafe window at the overcast sky and the streetlight blinking over an empty parking lot. And that's when the realization hit me. Marcy didn't care who she hurt, as long as she looked untouchable doing it. She didn't just leave me emotionally broken. She was trying to turn my silence into evidence of guilt, of incompetence, of emotional vacancy. She wasn't crying because she missed me. She was crying because I left the stage before she could finish the performance. Walt's show's over. I walked out of that cafe with a new plan forming in my head. I wasn't going to go online. I wasn't going to record an angry video or try to win people back with likes and followers. I was going to do the one thing Marcy never expected from me. I was going to tell the truth. And I wasn't going to whisper it this time. I never replied to any of her voicemails with words. Not once. But I did finally respond, in the one way she never expected. That same night, after leaving the cafe with the envelope of screenshots tucked under my arm, I stopped at a cheap print shop near the train station. The place reeked of old toner and burnt plastic. The clerk didn't ask any questions as I handed him a USB stick and quietly requested a few copies of something. Nothing flashy. Just clean, black and white prints. I sat at the far corner of the shop as the machine buzzed and clicked, slowly spitting out the very same messages Marcy had once weaponized to make herself look like a victim. Her own words, now on paper, time-stamped, dated, complete with mocking emojis and sarcastic punchlines about the man she used to call her husband. When it was done, I took the stack, slid it into a plain manila envelope, and wrote one sentence across the front in small, neat handwriting. This is the story you left out. I didn't send it to her. That would have been too direct. Too obvious. Instead, I mailed it anonymously to the podcast studio she'd been in contact with. I knew the name. Nisha had shown me the post where Marcy tagged the host. I found their mailing address buried in a sponsorship footer. No return address. No threats. No accusations. Just the truth, delivered quietly, like everything else I'd ever done. It wasn't about revenge. Not really. It was about balance. If she wanted to turn me into a plot device for her little redemption arc, I was going to make sure the other chapters weren't erased. I sent the envelope and returned to the motel that night feeling empty. Not victorious. Not angry. Just hollow in the way you feel after a fever breaks. The kind of emptiness that isn't sad, just done. I figured that would be the end of it. A quiet ripple in a very loud storm. But 2 days later, everything cracked open. It started with silence. No voicemails. No texts. No emails. Just radio silence from Marcy's and for a full 48 hours. I thought maybe she had finally given up, that she had found a new audience, a new story, a new man to carry her bags while she lit another bridge on fire. But then the calls started again. Not to me, to people we both knew. Mutual friends. Family members. Even coworkers who barely knew me outside of staff potlucks and elevator small talk. I got the first heads up from Desmond, of all people. The same guy who chuckled at her jokes that night. He texted me out of the blue. Hey man, I think something's up with Marcy. She's losing it online. Posting wild stuff. You okay? Curious, I logged into a dummy social account I'd made months ago just to monitor things from a safe distance. I hadn't touched it in weeks. And there it was. Marcy's page was a chaotic mess of vague posts, passive-aggressive captions, and emotional whiplash. One moment, she was quoting spiritual self-help nonsense. The next, she was ranting about manipulative men who play the victim. Then came a post that nearly stopped my heart. A close-up photo of her face, no filter, eyes puffy and red. Caption: when you try to tell your truth, but someone uses your past against you. I'm not perfect, but I never deserved this betrayal. Be careful who you trust. Hashtag fake supporters, hashtag trauma dumped. I didn't comment. I didn't share it. But within the next hour, 2 more people messaged me privately, one of them being the actual host of the podcast she had pitched. Her message was polite. Too polite. Hi Elwood. I received an anonymous submission that may be relevant to an upcoming feature. We're suspending the episode until we can verify some of the material. Please reach out if you'd like to share your side. No pressure, but the offer stands. That was when I knew. She knew exactly what I'd done. And it rattled her. The next morning, the voicemails returned. But this time, they were different. No more anger. No more accusations. Only that quiet, defeated tone I hadn't heard since the first night I walked out. Please, I don't know what you sent them, but they canceled the segment. They said it wasn't a good fit anymore. I just wanted to tell my story. I didn't mean to hurt you like this. I was scared. And selfish. And stupid. You didn't deserve what I did to you. She sniffled, then whispered the last line like a confession. You were the only person who ever really loved me. I sat there, listening, unmoved. It was the first time I realized something very important. I had stopped loving her long before I left. I just hadn't admitted it to myself. I had spent years confusing fear with affection. I thought staying meant strength. But in truth, I had been clinging to the version of her I met all those years ago in that used bookstore. Not the woman who turned me into a cautionary tale and mocked my gentleness as if it were some tragic flaw. I didn't return her call. I didn't need to. Because for once, my silence wasn't submission. It was closure. I don't know how she found out where I was staying. Maybe someone talked. Maybe she followed one of the mutuals who still had eyes on me. Maybe it was luck or obsession. I'd moved motels twice just to avoid any sort of trace, never stayed more than a week, always paid in cash. And yet, that morning, as I stood in the motel laundry room folding the same 3 shirts I'd been rotating for weeks, I felt a shadow at the doorway. I turned slowly, expecting the manager or maybe a guest asking for change. It was her. Marcy. No makeup. Puffy face. Wearing a hoodie that didn't belong to her, probably Jay's, or maybe one of those pity props she always wore when she wanted to look small and broken. My heart didn't race. My breath didn't catch. I didn't freeze up. I just felt tired. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out for a second. Then, finally, she said, "This is what it took for you to look at me like that." I didn't respond. I finished folding a sock and dropped it into the basket. Calm. Focused. Like I was handling paperwork instead of watching the woman who spent the last year deconstructing my soul stand 10 feet away, looking like a child in timeout. She stepped forward. "Elwood, please. I know I don't deserve anything from you. I know that now. I had to see you. You won't answer. You won't talk to me. And the podcast thing, that wasn't how I wanted any of this to go." I gave a dry laugh. "You were going to make a public spectacle out of my breakdown and call it empowerment. How exactly was it supposed to go?" She flinched. "I thought if people heard it from me first, they wouldn't judge me as harshly. I know that's messed up. I know I twisted it. I thought if I just controlled the narrative. There wouldn't be a narrative if you'd respected me to begin with," I said, louder than I meant to. My voice echoed slightly in the tiled laundry room. "You humiliated me in front of people I loved. Then you called me weak for leaving. And when that didn't work, you tried to convince strangers I was the problem. You weren't telling your truth, Marcy. You were hiding in it." She sat down hard on the bench near the dryer, burying her face in her hands. "I've ruined everything. I don't even know who I am anymore." I leaned against the machine. "You do. You've always known. You just counted on me never saying it out loud." She looked up, eyes red. "I didn't come here to fight. I can't live with the silence. Not anymore." "That's funny," I said. "You seemed to love it when I stayed quiet all those years." That stung her. I saw it. But she didn't lash out. She just sat there and let the moment hang in the air like smoke from something still smoldering. Then she asked the question I didn't expect. "Is there anyone else now?" I stared at her. "What does it matter?" "I need to know," she whispered. "If I was the final thing that broke you, or if someone else put you back together." That line hit me, harder than I wanted to admit. Because the truth was, there was someone. Not romantically. Not yet. Maybe never. But someone who made me remember what it felt like to speak without flinching. To be seen without being twisted. Nisha had been a lifeline in a sea of noise. Not because she wanted anything from me, but because she didn't believe the version of me that Marcy had sold. So I said, quietly, "No one broke me, Marcy. I just finally stopped letting you write the story." She wiped her face with her sleeve. "I deserve that." "No," I said. "You deserve your own life. Whatever that looks like now. But I'm not going to be part of it." She nodded, slow and silent, and stood up like gravity had doubled on her. I thought she might argue, or beg, or plead. But she didn't. She walked to the door, hand on the frame, and said one last thing. "You were the best thing I ever had. And I hated you for it." Then she left. I didn't chase her. I didn't watch her go. I turned back to the laundry and finished folding my last shirt. That night, I slept better than I had in years. 3 weeks have passed since the day she found me. I haven't heard from Marcy since. No calls. No emails. No cryptic online jabs dressed up as self-growth quotes. Just silence. The kind that used to feel like a punishment, but now feels like peace. I didn't move back home. I didn't start over in some dramatic way. I just began. A slow, quiet beginning. I rented a small place not far from where the trees outnumber the cars. I fixed up a busted radio I found at a flea market. I drink my coffee in the morning without needing to ask anyone how they take theirs. I don't check my phone with dread anymore. And for the first time in a very, very long time, I like the sound of my own thoughts. There's no grand romantic twist here. No rebound story. No perfect new partner waiting in the wings. Just a man who finally realized that being alone isn't the same as being invisible. It's actually where I started seeing myself again. As for the people who believed Marcy's version of me, I don't blame them. Everyone loves a good story. But the people who mattered, the ones who truly knew me, they reached out. Some apologized. Others just listened. And I'm okay with that. And yes, I forgave her. Not for her sake, but for mine. Because I couldn't carry her version of me any longer. I had to let it go. I had to choose the version of myself I had nearly forgotten. The quiet, steady one who loves hard, feels deeply, and who now knows silence isn't weakness. It's clarity. So if you've been through something like this, if someone tried to shrink you, rewrite you, erase you while smiling in public, I want you to hear this loud and clear. You don't have to yell to be heard. You don't have to fight to prove your worth. You just have to leave when you know it's time. And live louder than the lie they told about you. Thank you for following my story here on Reddit Confessions. If it resonated with you, or if you've been through something that changed you forever, drop your own experience in the comments. What was the turning point in your story? What finally made you walk away or fight back? We'd love to hear it. Until next time, stay true to who you are, even if you have to walk away in silence to do it.